Hey everyone, we've had lots of questions come in on how to connect to the APIs of SAM on Snow Atlas. So today I wanted to give you a quick getting started on how to get connected, how to create a token, and how to get some data back from the API with a few samples. So let's get started. As you can see, I'm logged into the Snow Atlas portal. As myself, I'm doing this in a dev environment, so the URLs and things will be a little off and not perfect, but the gist of the content will be the same as what you'd see in production. When I'm in here, I go to SAM core, and when I pull up my computer objects, I'll see my list of computer objects in my environment. Now, to get these out of Snow Atlas and use these via API, we need to create what's called a application registration. And this will let us do things programmatically externally from the API, like pull our computers list, users list, things like that into maybe a tool on premise that you might want to integrate with. So let's get started. If I go down to Snow Atlas settings, if I go into application registrations, you can see there's a couple here already in my test lab environment. Up here in the top right, select create application. I'm just going to call this demo computers. You can give it a description if you like, and if you have more than one enrollment site, you can select the dropdown. I'm going to pick Snow Lab because that's the one that I'm working in today. And then you have all of your permissions set. Each one of these objects obviously relates to some type of an endpoint, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second in the API spec. But for today, I'm just going to go into computers. I know that I just want to view computer data, and I'm going to do a read. So it's SAM computer and the read CRUD operation on that. Select that. I'm going to go and select create. It's going to give me a client ID and a client secret, as well as this API URL. You need to pay attention to this part of your URL. It's your region. When you're dealing with some type of a script, and I'll show you where to get those in a minute, you need this to make sure that you are going to hit the correct endpoints for where your SAM instance is hosted. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put it in my script, and I'll pull that over for you in just a second so you can see it. And I'm going to copy my client secret. You can screenshot these as much as you like. By the time you see this video, those will be no more. And I'm just going to pull this over so you can see what's going on. But I've already got a script written, and I'll show you how to get this if it's something you want to use just as a test. So I've got a export computers. This is just a standard client ID secret that we just created. I'm going to get a token, and then I'm going to go and get the list of computer objects paginated in that region. And I'm just going to write this out to a CSV. Nothing groundbreaking, but it's a nice sample to kind of get you started to know that what you're doing is going to work. I'm going to click play. I'm going to let this go through its thing. You can see it's already got its token. And you can see that it got to step 16 where it's token acquired. So it was successful in getting my token. We're just going to give this a minute to finish up. Okay, it looks like it's finished. I'm back to the prompt, so everything's run properly. I'm going to go over to my computer, and I'm going to pull up my export.csv, and here we go. So I have an export of every item, every host name, ID, IP address, all that type of information, whether it's Windows, all that type of information. It's pulled and exported to CSV, and that's just a basic sample of getting data out of the API in Snow Atlas. Now, you're wondering, where do I get that script? What does that type of thing look like? There's one thing I do want to point out first. When you're dealing with these types of objects, and I was putting out that sam.computer.r, when you're dealing with the API spec, and these are listed on our site, and I'll show you them in a second. In this particular instance, we're playing with computers 2. It uses the SAM computer R permission set for this in particular endpoint, and you can see the items that we're getting back here. I didn't write all of these out into the CSV, but you can obviously pull more of these if you wish. So with that, I'm going to just quickly guide you over to our GitHub. And if you go to Snow Software Global /Snow Atlas-integrations, I've got a couple auth samples here, one in PowerShell, one in Python, and a couple scripts for getting computers, mobile devices, as well as SAM users, just to kind of get you started and get you connected to the APIs. If you happen to go to docs.snowsoftware.com, click on APIs and SAM core APIs, and then if you happen to pull up this URL, you'll actually get the API endpoint for this, and you can take that URL, put it in Postman. You can do what I did. Visual Studio Code, I just pulled it up with a Redocly plugin so I could see it in a user consumable fashion. But everything is here that you would need, and I hope that helps get somebody started. Have a good day, everyone. Cheers.